Welcome Junior Turkeys. My name is Mrs. Ramla. Thank you for watching this video. This is a video to prepare the grade 12s for the upcoming prelims and final exams. In this video, we are going to look at the supplementary paper, the paper 1 that was written in 2021. Right, section A. Before we do section A, Junior Turkeys, please note that in this year, there were still some parts of human impact that was in the matric exam. We will still go over them because some of the grade 11s can still look at this paper and learn, as the human impact is now in grade 11. Right, let's get down to section A. Right, various options are provided as possible answers to the following questions. Choose the answer and write only the letter next to the question numbers in the answer book. 111. The function of the epididymis is produce semen? No. Transport sperm to the urethra? No. Produce sperm? No. And then we know the epididymis stores sperm until mature, so our answer is D. 112. Which of the following is an exocrine gland? An exocrine gland is a gland that has a duct. Now, if you look at pituitary gland, that is endocrine, adrenal endocrine, thyroid endocrine, as these hormones secrete, as these glands secrete the hormones into the blood. The only one that is left out that we didn't read is the prostate gland, because we know the prostate gland secretes hormones into the duct, into the vas deferens. So your answer is B. 113. A list of the functions of the brain is provided below. Interprets sensation, regulates involuntary actions, controls higher thought processes, controls voluntary actions. Which one of the following combinations are functions of the cerebrum? Now, if you remember watching my videos, we teach cerebrum as VHS, controls voluntary actions, so there's it there, 5. H, responsible for higher thought processes, 3. And S, interprets sensation. So the answer is 1, 3, 4. What's our option? 1, 3, 4, and your answer is C. 114. An acrosome has mitochondria to produce energy for the movement of sperm? No. Chromatin network that carries genes? No. We know the acrosome has enzymes to penetrate the ovum, so our answer is C. 115. Ovulation is stimulated by an increase in the levels of. We already know LH is responsible for ovulation, so the answer is B. 1.6. 1.6. Barotrauma is a common condition that occurs when pressure builds up in the middle ear. This causes the tympanic membrane to bulge. It is most common amongst deep-sea divers. Divers are advised against diving when they have a middle ear infection because, now, the auditory canal cannot equalize the pressure in the middle ear. We know that's not the function of the auditory canal. B, the eustachian tube is blocked and air cannot enter the middle ear. No. We know that tympanic membrane is hardened and cannot pass the vibrations to the middle ear, and ossicles are fused together and cannot vibrate freely. Now, we know when you have a middle ear infection, right, and you're diving, there's a change in pressure. Now, as you enter and dive deeper, that eustachian tube, your middle ear, is blocked with mucus, and so it cannot equalize pressure on either side of the tympanum. Hence, your tympanum or tympanic membrane will bulge. So the correct answer is B. So whenever they talk about diving or sky diving, the eustachian tube is blocked because of the middle ear infection and the mucus, and that is the most correct answer. 117. Which of the following shows the correct combination of the hormone with its target organ? The target organ is the organ that the hormone has its effect on. So let's see. A, prolactin, pituitary gland, glucagon, pancreas, LH, uterus, TSH, and thyroid gland. Yes, the thyroid stimulating hormone has its effect on the thyroid gland, so our answer is D. 118. Oogenesis takes place where? In the uterus, the ovary, the cervix, or the vagina? We know in B, the ovary. And then 119. A learner conducted an investigation to determine the effect of caffeine on reaction time. The procedure was done as follows. 50 male volunteers of the same age participated. Their reaction time was measured using a computer program. They were all given 200 ml of an energy drink that contained caffeine. Their reaction times were measured again every 10 minutes for 2 hours. Which of the following increases reliability of the results? Now we know reliability, we usually use repeat the investigation or increase the sample size. Now if you look at which one has the best option for increasing sample size, 50 volunteers were used. Yes, that answer is C. 1110. An investigation was done in which a potted plant was placed horizontally on a clinostat as shown in the diagram. The plant was exposed to uniform light from all directions. A clinostat is a device with a disc that rotates when switched on, allowing the attached plant to rotate as well. The stem grew vertically upwards, as you can see, which indicates that the clinostat. Now, this will only happen if the clinostat is not turning and if the plant grew straight, right? So there we know A, it can only be A, the clinostat was stationary and the stem did not grow downwards, so there was negative geotropism, okay? The only other option would have been phototropism, but we know clinostats always deal with geotropism, so C is not our option. All right, that was our multiple choice. That was not too bad. I liked question 1.1.6. It was a nice tricky question. Right, let's get down to the rest of section A. Right, 1.2. Give the correct biological term for each of the following descriptions. Write down only the term next to the question numbers in the answer booklet. Right, 1.2.1. The planting of the same crop on the same land repeatedly. Yes, this is human impact. So planting the same crop on the same land over and over, monoculture. Grade 12s, you don't have to know that. 1.2.2. The permanent removal of trees and vegetation from an area. 1.2.2. Deforestation, also human impact, you don't have to know that. 1.2.3. A part of the male reproductive system used to transfer semen to the female, we know that that is the penis. 1.2.4. The part of the nervous system that is made up of spinal and cranial nerves. Very important. I've seen this question come out a lot. Obviously, that is the peripheral nervous system. 1.2.5. A type of vision in which both eyes are used together to focus on an object. Obviously, two eyes, binocular vision or stereoscopic vision. 1.2.6. The structure that the Graafian follicle develops into after ovulation, that we know is the corpus luteum. 1.2.7. A functional gap between two consecutive neurons, synapse. 1.2.8. An underground permeable rock that stores water, that is human impact, you don't have to know that, that is the aquifer. 1.2.9. The hormone that stimulates puberty in females, that we know, estrogen. Right, 1.3. Indicate whether each of the descriptions in column 1 apply to A only, B only, both A and B, or none of the items in column 2. Write A only, B only, both A and B, or none next to the question numbers. 1.3.1. A factor that reduces food security. This is human impact, you don't have to know, but yes, floods and droughts will affect the plants and animals and reduce food security, so our answer is both A and B. 1.3.2. The part of the neuron that speeds up the transmission of an impulse, we know as myelin sheath, A only. 1.3.3. A factor that impacts on biodiversity, we know it's human impact, you don't have to know this, but we know it's poaching and habitat destruction, so our answer is both A and B. 1.4. The diagram below represents part of the human ear. 1.4.1. Identify part A. Part A, if you look, you can see it's your semicircular canals. B, you can see, leaves the cochlea, that is your auditory nerve. 1.4.2. Give the letter and the name of the part, or firstly, A, creates pressure waves in the fluid of the inner ear. So we know, creates pressure waves, the first one is going to be E, and that is the oval window. B, letter and name of the part that absorbs excess pressure waves in the inner ear to prevent the formation of an echo. We already know that that's D, the round window. 1.4.3. Name the part of the brain that interprets impulses from part F. Part F is the semicircular canals. So what part of the brain is responsible for balance? Cerebellum. Then 143b, name the receptors found at C. What receptors are found in the cochlea? We know they could be the hair cells or organ of Corti. 1.5. A boy steps on a nail and pulls his leg away suddenly. The diagram below shows the pathway taken to create his reaction. So there's the diagram, the pathway. 151. Name the pathway represented by the diagram. The pathway is a reflex arc. Okay. Don't get confused between reflex action. 152. Give one advantage of this type of reaction. What is an advantage of the reflex action? To prevent or minimize injury. 153. Identify part B. Part B, can you see, is in the spinal cord. That can only be the interneuron or the connector neuron. Identify part C. There we go. That's a root. That is the ventral root. This is the dorsal root. This is the ventral root. And identify part E. Part E. This is the receptor, so E has to be the effector. You can also call it the muscle. 154. Give the letter and the name of the neuron that transports impulses towards the spinal cord. Here we can see there's the receptor. And so this will be the sensory neuron. And can you see it is a sensory neuron. Right, that's the end of section A. Section A was quite a good section. We could have scored enough good marks for us to get our A. So let us see what section B holds in store for us. Question 2. 2.1. The diagram below shows a phase during meiosis in an animal cell. 2.1. Identify part C. Now look carefully at where C is pointing to. It's pointing to that round structure in the center. That's the centromere. Now how I remember this, it's in the center. Can you see that? So see what part of the word you must have. Centromere means center. 2.1.2. Name the phase represented in the diagram. Now look carefully. Can you see there's homologous chromosomes and they're in the middle? So it can only be metaphase 1. 2.1.3. B represents homologous chromosomes. What are homologous chromosomes? For 2 marks. I always teach my kids that homologous chromosomes have the same, you must have the word same size, same shape, same centromere position, same gene locus. Let's see what the memo wants. Pair of chromosomes, same structure, location of the centromere, length, sequence of genes. One is maternal and the other is paternal. So you see, my answer would have also gotten you your 2 marks. All right, 2.1.4. Explain the appearance of the chromosomes in the diagram. So if you look at the diagram, can you see that some of the chromatids, they are white and some are black, and some are black and some are white. So can you see they have parts that are white and parts that are black. So we know what happened here. So they're asking you to explain the appearance. So some chromatids have a mixture of genetic material, right? Why? What took place? We know crossing over took place during prophase 1. Okay, so don't say they have an exchange of black and white material. That is known. That black and that white that is exchanged is genetic material. Right, 2.1.5. State the function of part A in the phase following the one represented in the diagram. So A, we know, is the spindle fiber. So they want to know the function of the spindle fiber in anaphase. We know the spindle fibers are protein in nature. So these fibers will contract and pull the chromosomes to the opposite poles. 2.1.6. The total number of DNA is 12 arbitrary units in each daughter cell at the end of the cell division. How much DNA was in the parent cell at the beginning of the cell division? So daughter cells had 12. How many cells? So we know that would have been, you have to multiply that times 4, right? Because in each daughter cell it was 12, 12, 12, 12. So then how many was in the original before meiosis 1 and 2 took place? 48 arbitrary units. 2.2. The diagram below represents a part of the human skin. There's the human skin. 2.2.1. Identify part B. That is a convoluted coil structure that can only be leading with the sweat duct, and there's a sweat pore, so B is the sweat gland. 222. Describe how structure A functions during thermoregulation on a cold day. Only structure A, which is the blood capillaries. Look, for 3 marks. Don't write the whole answer that you memorized. So, you'll say the blood vessels will constrict. Less blood flows to the surface of the skin, less heat is lost to the surface of the skin, and that will bring the temperature back to normal or increase the temperature. Any 3. So basically you just discussed vasoconstriction. 223. That was 222. 223. Explain why the temperature needs to be kept constant in the human body. We know for 2 marks that your enzymes' optimum temperature to function is 37 degrees. Enzymes will denature at high temperatures or become inactive at low temperatures. Anyone explained. Make sure you know this. 2.3. ADH plays a role in osmoregulation in the body. 231. Name the gland that secretes ADH. Secretes ADH is the pituitary gland. Here they also accepted hypophysis or hypothalamus. 232. Describe osmoregulation on a cold day. So on a cold day, the water levels are higher than normal in the blood. Why? Less water is lost through sweating. So less ADH will be secreted or no ADH will be secreted. Renal tubules become less permeable to water. I would rather say less ADH. So less permeable to water the renal tubules become, and less water is reabsorbed, more urine is produced. Take a note of where the marks are given as well. And remember, it's only 3 marks, so don't write a lot. 233. A person with a medical condition that causes the renal tubules to become resistant to the effects of ADH always produces large volumes of urine. Why ADH levels in the blood will always be higher than normal for this person. Now, water cannot be reabsorbed, right? The renal tubules are resistant to the effects of ADH. So what happens is the water levels are lower than normal, and so to compensate for that, more ADH is secreted by the pituitary gland. It's a very nice question. It's basically asking you a negative feedback mechanism. It's a very nice question. Make sure you know how to answer questions like this. 2.4. Read the extract below. Reproduction in guppy fish. Guppy fish have a very interesting method of breeding. During mating, the male deposits packets of sperm inside the female's reproductive opening using an organ called the gonopodium. This process takes place several times and the female stores some of the extra sperm. The fertilized eggs remains in the female's body until they hatch and the young are born alive. The gestation period is usually between 22 and 28 days. So 2 for 1. Name the type of fertilization in guppies. So we can see the sperm is deposited inside the female, so internal fertilization. 2 for 2. Explain 2 ways in which this type of fertilization in 2 for 1 increases reproductive success. So how is internal fertilization increasing reproductive success? The sperms are deposited inside the female's body. Increases the chances of fertilization. The zygotes are in the body, protected from the predators, and there's no environmental danger as well. 2 for 3. Why are guppies referred to or regarded as ovoviviparous? Because the eggs hatch inside the female's body and the young are born alive. That was also a nice, easy question. 2.5. Premature delivery of babies. Babies born between weeks 28 to 35 of gestation has been a concern in many countries. The care of premature babies is very costly. Women with a history of premature delivery are sometimes given a progesterone treatment between weeks 16 to 20 of pregnancy. However, this treatment is believed to lead to the development of gestational diabetes mellitus in the mother. An investigation was done to determine if progesterone treatment leads to the development of gestational diabetes mellitus. The procedure was as follows. The 300 pregnant women with a history of premature delivery participated in the investigation. Those that had pre-existing diabetes mellitus were excluded. The women were divided into 2 equal groups, Group A and B. The women in group A were injected once a week with 250 grams of progesterone between week 16 and 20. Their glucose levels were measured and recorded daily between week 16 and 36 of the pregnancy. Group B was the control. 251. Why is the injection of progesterone a good treatment to prevent premature delivery? So they're asking you, what's the function of progesterone? Progesterone is going to maintain the endometrium, right? Makes the endometrium more thicker, more vascular, more glandular, and help to maintain the pregnancy. 252. Identify the independent variable. Now, if you look here, it says to determine if progesterone treatment leads to the development of gestational diabetes. So this is where your aim is. And in your aim, that's where your independent and dependent variable is. Now, your independent starts with the I. You controlling that. So what are you controlling? Progesterone treatment, as you can see there. Then they ask you dependent variable. What are you measuring? Development of gestational diabetes mellitus. There you go. So that's where you usually get your answer. You look for the aim in the explanation. Right, 253. Describe how the investigators determined whether any of the participants in group A had developed gestational diabetes mellitus. So what were they doing? They were measuring their glucose levels every day. When the glucose level of a pregnant woman was high, that indicated she had gestational diabetes. So don't overthink this question, it's quite straightforward. 254. State two factors that were kept constant when the progesterone was administered in group A. So, two factors constant, you always start off with the word same. So what did they use? They used the same amount of progesterone. Okay, you can see it here. They injected them for the same period of time. Okay, and they gave the injections at the same time. They were weekly injections. So you take it from the passage. Okay, factors that were kept constant. So you take it from here. Don't make up your own factors. Then 255. Group B was the control. Explain the importance of Group B in the investigation. Group B didn't get progesterone. So if gestational diabetes developed in Group A, it proves that is because of the progesterone treatment. This was a very nice practical question. Make sure you always know how to answer these questions. Prepare well for them. Question 3. 3.1. The diagram below represents the type of visual defect. So let's look at it. There's the image falling in front of the retina. So 3.1.1, identify part F. So F is this outer layer here, and that we know is the sclera. 3.1.2, state one function of part B. Part B is the middle layer, and that is pointing to the choroid. So we know the choroid has melanin to absorb light rays and prevents internal reflection of light in the eye. There's also a lot of blood vessels in B that supplies the eye cells with oxygen and nutrients. Right, mark the first one only, so you only have to know one. 3.1.3. Explain why light rays must focus on part D rather than on part E. So D is the yellow spot, E is the blind spot. So D has the photoreceptors, the cones. So that's where the clearest image forms. E has no rods or no cones, so no image will form there. So the best place for the image to form is only at D. 3.1.4. Name the type of lens that is used to correct the visual defect shown in the diagram. So this person you can see is short-sighted. You can see the image is falling in front of the retina. Now you want the image to fall here. So you need a biconcave lens. The concave lens, if I draw it here, this part will reflect light more. So the clear image falls on the retina. So your answer is a concave lens. Right. You could say concave or biconcave. Then they ask you 3.1.5. Describe how the type of lens mentioned in 3.1.4 corrects the visual defect. We just discussed it. Biconcave lens will allow light to diverge. I would have said refracts light more, but let's do what they say. Will help diverge the light so it can clear image can reach and focus the retina. So helps the lenses to diverged light. Okay. Then 316. Explain one way in which part C is structurally suited for accommodation. Let's see part C. Part C is the lens. So we know the lens is elastic and it can change shape, so it can focus light on the retina. 317. Name two muscles found in part G. Part G, that's the iris. So we know radial and circular muscles. The last question, 318, name and describe the visual defect that occurs when part A is uneven. That's the cornea. We know that is astigmatism. They want you to describe the defect. Light is refracted unevenly and it forms a blurred image. So this question on the eye was a very nice question. They incorporated the adaptations, the functions, and the defects as well. A very nice question. Right, 3.2. Read the extract below. Auxins can be used as selective herbicides. Auxins stimulate the plant growth. However, a high concentration of auxins may cause the plant to grow too fast. The plant is not able to sustain this rapid growth, and as a result, it will die. Farmers spray artificially manufactured auxins into the surface of weeds to kill them. This type of herbicide, weed killer, is selective as it kills mainly the broad-leaved dicotyledonous plants without having any effect on the narrow-leaved monocotyledonous plants such as wheat, maize, and grass. Auxin-based herbicides are more environmentally friendly. Other herbicides may kill some organisms, and the chemicals from these herbicides accumulate in the food chain, thus disturbing the ecosystem. 321. State one way in which auxin causes growth in plants. So, we know what auxin does. Stimulates cell elongation, cell division. 322. Explain why farmers would want to kill the weeds in their fields. Now, weeds compete with the normal plants for nutrients, resources. So if we want to get rid of the weeds, we don't want them to compete with our crops for water and nutrients and space. 323. According to the extract, state one advantage of using herbicides that are not auxin-based. Straightforward. They may kill other organisms, they may accumulate in the ecosystems or disrupt the ecosystem. As is here. Right. 324. Give one reason for using auxin-based herbicides instead of physically removing the weeds. Right. It's less labor-intensive, less time-consuming, less expensive, of course. Right. If you have to go there and remove, you have to remove the whole plant. Right. So this way it's time-consuming and it's less labor-intensive. Okay. The auxin will also kill the whole plant as well, so it's more effective. Right. So let's look at the answer. Less labor-intensive, less time-consuming, less expensive. Auxin herbicides will kill the whole plant, but with physical removal, you only remove part of the plant. Nice answer. 325. A farmer planted maize and beans in her field. Explain why the farmer should not use an auxin-based herbicide in her field. Now, we know auxin-based herbicide kills the broadleaf plants, and the farmer would lose money because you see, beans are dicots and maize is mealies. So the beans will get killed by the auxin, the herbicide, and the farmer will make less money. Three point three. Livestock farming contributes to approximately 14.6% of all global greenhouse gas emissions released into the atmosphere. The graph below shows the global greenhouse gas emissions of different types of livestock. So here you see global greenhouse gas emissions of different types of livestock, greenhouse gas emissions in million tons, different types of livestock, cattle, pigs, poultry, sheep, and goats. 331. Name the livestock farming that contributes the least to greenhouse gas emissions. So which one contributes the least? We can see it's sheep and goats. 332. One advantage of greenhouse gases. We know greenhouse gases traps heat, and that is what keeps the earth warm to sustain and maintain life. 333. How much greenhouse gases are emitted by cattle compared to the other types of livestock combined? Show all your working. So you take 4623 and you minus it from 668, 684, and 474. So I would add these three and then take 4623 and minus them. So it'll be 2797 what? Million tons. Okay. Then 334. One of the greenhouse gases emitted by livestock is methane. Name one other source of methane. Easy. Landfill sites, rice paddies, waterlogged soil, wetlands, mining of coal, fossil fuels, biofuels, fracking, sewage decomposition, melting of ice in glaciers. 335. Why an increase in livestock farming can lead to global warming for 3 marks. Then there's more methane released, more greenhouse gases. More heat is trapped, which will lead to an enhanced greenhouse effect, leading to an increase in the temperature, which will lead to an increase in global warming or climate change. But tricks, you don't have to know this question. The grade 11s need to, but I just needed to answer it as well. 3.4. Still human impact, so matrix, you don't need to know this. Grade 11s, you can watch this. 3.4. A factory was built on the banks of a river close to a fishing village. The factory used water from the river to cool down the machinery. The water was then released back into the river, causing thermal pollution. 341. What is thermal pollution? Thermal pollution refers to when you change the normal temperature of an aquatic ecosystem. So when that water is released back into the ecosystem, that water is now hot water. So that hot water. So you're changing the temperature of water in a normal ecosystem. Right. So 342. Describe how thermal population affects the water quality. Hot water lowers the oxygen concentration. It will cause algal bloom, and it, very important, will increase the number of bacteria, and this will reduce the quality of water because nobody will want to drink that water. 343. Suggest one way in which the factory can reduce thermal pollution. The hot water can be stored until it's cooled before it's released into the river. After cooling down, the hot water can be reused to cool down the plant again, or you can use fans or other technology for cooling down of the machinery. Nice answer. 344. How will thermal pollution affect the fishermen in the village economically? Now, warm water decreases the amount of oxygen, which will cause the fish to die. And if there's less fish, there'll be less fish for the fishermen to catch and sell. So they will have less money. 345. During the lockdown of the country due to COVID-19 restrictions, the factory was closed for a period of 4 months. Suggest with the reason the impact this would have on the biodiversity in Area B. So there's no fishing. There's no functioning of the factory. So the biodiversity, all the organisms increased because there was no pollution that occurred. I like the question. Right, now we're going to section C. Now, section C in those days was the essay. Now, the essay is not anymore. You don't have to write an essay in the papers currently. Right, but we'll still go over the question. They can still ask you short questions from the essays. So, describe the events that led to pregnancy from the time a zygote is formed up to the formation of the fetus, including the development of the placenta and umbilical cord. So, events from pregnancy, from the zygote up to formation of the fetus, and then placenta and umbilical cord formation. So, we know zygote is going to divide by mitosis. We know this to form a ball of cells called a morula, which will further divide to form a hollow ball of cells called the blastocyst. Then the blastocyst will enter the uterus, implanting the endometrium, and that's called implantation. We know the outer layer of the embryo will form the chorion. The inner layer forms the amnion with the amniotic fluid. After implantation, we know the chorion develops many finger-like outgrowths called chorionic villi. The endometrium with the chorionic villi forms the placenta, and the placenta consists of blood-rich embryonic and maternal tissues. The umbilical cord develops between the fetus and the placenta, consists of a hollow tube, which contains umbilical artery and a vein. Up to 8 to 12 weeks, the development, it's called an embryo. And then when differentiation of tissues into organs occurs, it's now called a fetus. So you see, they wanted you to talk about embryo development up to implantation. Then how the chorion forms and the amnion forms. Then how the placenta forms, which is chorionic villi, umbilical cord with the blood vessels, and then how the embryo changed to the fetus. It's a very nice answer that I would actually remember as well for the future. So this is a nice question. Make sure grade 12s you know the different divisions of this question. I've seen them in many past papers. So thank you grade 12s for joining me and watching this video as we get ready for your prelims and final exams. Join me and watch all my other videos as well.